This video is sponsored by Train World, America's discount model train store since 1968.
Hey everybody, it's Jimmy from the DIY and Digital, and today I'm talking about things that kind of bug me about model railroading. Seriously. Welcome back everybody. First of all, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you are eligible for the 10,000 subscriber giveaway sponsored by Train World. Those guys were awesome enough to give me a couple prizes to give away to you guys in N and HO scale, and you can check out those prizes and enter the giveaway right up here as well as in the description below. So before we begin, I just want to talk about another building that's debuting this week. This is building number 6. And we'll talk about more of that at the end of the episode, but let's go ahead and get into our list. So first of all, let me preface with this, that I love model railroading. There's no doubt in my mind. I absolutely love it. It is so much fun to me. It is very relaxing. It is therapeutic. It comprises so many other little things. I'm a big tinkerer, which model railroading was pretty much the hobby made for if you like tinkering and you like being artistic and all these different things. Model railroading is really the hobby for you. But there are things that kind of bug me that I don't necessarily love about it. So I've comprised a list of my 5 things that I do not love about model railroading. So let's go ahead and dive right in. My number 5 thing is the intimidation factor. And this is not necessarily for those of us who've been in it for a while, but these are people that are interested in it, that want to get into the hobby. Our hobby is very, very nuanced and has a wide range, and you can really dive into the detail. And there are some people who are purists who just want this to be detail and detail oriented and mimic an exact time. And that is totally fine. And that's part of the fun of this hobby. But we also have to understand that that's very intimidating for someone trying to get into the hobby. People that are just getting in don't necessarily know things like this Norfolk Southern Heritage locomotive is never going to run with this Milwaukee Road boxcar. They're just putting things together that they like. So when you're trying to figure out how to run things remotely accurately, it can be intimidating to try and figure out what cars go where and what should look correct with what locomotive and time period. And a lot of times starter sets don't necessarily put the correct things together. They put the things that are going to make people buy them. So it gets really, really confusing. So there is an intimidating factor if you're trying to get further in to model railroading, and you have to do a lot of research. And that's one thing that I think I don't like, because it can keep people away from the hobby, and we always want to grow our hobby. Number 4 is where to start. To say that there are a lot of places that you can start in model railroading is an understatement. You have to figure out if you just want to run something for fun, that's great. That's the easiest place to start. But if we're talking about where to start, what to model, whether you're trying to model a main line or a short line, or if you want to do a loop of track and how do I keep that fun and what do I do, it's really hard to figure out where to start in model railroading other than the loop of track that we've all seen in books and television and advertisements. That's really the depth of what people are told where to start. And a starter set's a great spot, but we all know that starter sets can get boring really, really quickly. So figuring out where to start and then move on, that's one thing that can be tough for people. And it's one thing that I don't like, because it can be an overwhelming thing to figure out. My number 3 is definitely something that I think the vast majority of us can relate to, and that is big dreams and no space. We all have seen those ultra massive, ultra amazing, spent half a lifetime building model railroads that span an entire basement or can fit in an entire house. Those layouts are absolutely awe-inspiring and can help you get going on building your own with giving you some great ideas. But the bottom line is, if we could all have that layout, we probably would. But a lot of us just don't have the space for it. For instance, my layout is in the space of the garage that would have been where my car goes. So I gave up my space for my car to park in my garage so that I could put my layout in here. My wife still parks in the other half of the garage, and we have a ton of storage. So while I would love a huge space for my layout, it's just not possible. So my dream layout is not going to be in this house, and I'm going to have to build it at some point in the future. So big dreams, no space. That's one of the things I really kind of bugs me about model railroading sometimes. My final two are going to be really more of technical layout, building layout, maintenance type things rather than big picture things for model railroading. My number two thing is ballasting. Ballasting is one of those things that is very tedious and can take a very, 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 very long time depending on how big your layout is. And I just don't like doing it. But it's one of those things that you absolutely have to get right if you're looking to have something that looks somewhat realistic or aesthetically pleasing. So ballasting is one of those just tedious things that we just have to deal with on model railroading. And I know that there are people out there that love ballasting, that are like, this is my thing and it's great. I just don't like doing it. My number one thing that bugs me about model railroading, and this is one thing that I think also a lot of you, especially with slightly more permanent layouts, can really relate to, especially if you have a table layout, and that is getting under the benchwork. I have more scrapes and bruises and pulled muscles and everything from wiggling my way under that layout than I ever have with anything else. I have contorted my arms. I have come up with back pain and been sore the next morning from trying to get under that layout. So one thing you can do to help that is make sure that your wiring is rock solid before you do any final covering, so that you have to minimize your amount of time underneath the layout. But at some point, if you have a decent sized layout, you're gonna have to get under the bench work, and you're gonna have to do some, whether it's electrical work or any sort of basic structure work, you're gonna have to get under your layout. And bottom line is, none of us really love being underneath the layout. So those are my 5 things that bug me about model railroading. Okay, enough of the negativity, because that's about as negative as you're gonna hear me go. Let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about building number 6. Building number 6 is my first catty-cornered building, my first building that's really not 100% right angles. A little bit more difficult to design because of that, but not much. But that's why I put it later on. It's got a nice catty-cornered double door with some windows on the side. It also has some storefront windows as well as a side door and a back door as always. The first floor on the back walls only has one window on it, whereas the rest of the floors have plenty of windows with the exception of the very back, which has just 3 windows on this side. It's a bit wider than my other buildings, which means it takes slightly more resin, but not enough to really make it price that much more. So this will be the same price as building number 4. It takes about the same amount of resin. So this will be a $12 building, and the imperfect prints, which I have yet to have any of actually, when they come out, will be $7. It'll have a nice base that's nice and square that matches up with the rest of them, and a good roof that sits right in there. So that's building number 6, already on sale in my Etsy store right now, so you can go check that out. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you're eligible for the 10,000 subscriber giveaway sponsored by Train World, and go ahead and hit that like button, hit that bell icon so that you don't miss any updates. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe and happy railroading. I cannot wait for fall and winter when it will be nice and cool in here.